Look, man, I can't love everything, and I'm sorry. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Beyond the Grave Media. This is Josh here, checking in on you. Why do I always do that? Why do I always turn to my right? I always do that. We're not even started yet. So I'm just going to leave it in. I always say, hey, what's up? Welcome back to Beyond the Grave Media. And I turn to my right, maybe to like adjust the mic, but I think I'm trying to think of like we're at the bar or you're in my place, right? We're on the couch and I'm addressing my friends, the group of people that I'm talking to. And so I'm left-handed behind baseball, right? So I always go to my right. I'm always turning to face people and like just kick back. We're watching movies in my living room or out at the bar. I turn my stool. I'm like, what's up? And we start talking about what we're into. So I'm always doing that. Really what I should do is move the camera so it's this way so I don't have to turn. So I just go, hey, welcome. Right? I'm so stupid. Anyway, I have a complicated history with the film we're about to do tonight, and I wanted to kind of just do an honest review. Just no frills, no thrills, just kind of like how I'm stupid about this film, Dead and Buried. However you're doing out there, wherever you found me, however, I hope that just for 5 or 10 minutes and listen to my corny dad jokes, you feel a little bit better about yourself and you can take something with you. So thanks for being here. Let's check this out. So 1981's Dead and Buried right here. I have a super complicated history with this, and it's because I'm kind of dumb, okay? So I probably watched this 25 years ago, 30 years ago when I was like 9 or 10 maybe. And so that's on me for not watching this in the late 90s or the 2000s, the 2010s, right? Hadn't really thought a whole lot about it. I just knew that I had seen it a couple of times when I was young, and it kind of just gets buried in the slasher and all of the there's a lot of movies that came out around this time that remind me of it, and so I thought that maybe I had it confused with other things in my head. And so when I revisited this a couple years ago when I bought this Blue Underground 4K, I was disappointed. Disappointed is underselling how pissed off I was when I put this on my TV. And I have a really nice TV, and I thought that I had a pretty decent player. And so, I get home from work, it's sitting on my doorstep, I unclick it, I pop it in the 4K player, and I watch it, and I was just underwhelmed completely. And everybody was saying on all these like message boards how amazing this transfer looked. This is like bringing this 1981 classic to life. And maybe because I hadn't seen it on VHS, I was just like, what? Like the blue in the sky, it looked like somebody like smeared it. It was so grainy, and I love grain. It was almost damn near unwatchable. I couldn't make anything out. It was just dull. It was flat. I didn't get the hype, man. And so I really didn't like it maybe the third time I ever watched it. So this is a couple years ago. And I couldn't get over the picture quality. So what I ended up doing was I took the Blu-ray into my room and I watched the Blu-ray on my plasma TV. And then I found it streaming as well, and I tried to compare the two, and it just looks like the image quality was never really that good, right? And I have films like that I love, but I just couldn't get into it. I was like, man, I was paying attention to the way the film looked and not what the film was doing. So that was mistake number one. Okay, this was my experience about 2 years ago. Then something else happened. So then back in October, in October, a lot of times I will watch like B movies from, like 50s, 60s, 70s, horror movies that I don't really give enough love, that I feel like are either blind spots or just I'm kind of like taking for granted. And I'll try to catch up on stuff, and I really like that. I love B movies. I love sequels. I love a lot of stupid stuff out there. So I decided to watch this again. And that time I had a little bit better time. I just put the 4K on, and I'd gotten a new 4K player, and so I watched it on that, and I put my phone down, and I just kind of let the movie take over for a little bit. And I had a much better time not paying attention to anything but what was on the screen. And what was on the screen started to work a little bit. It started to like wormhole a little bit to where I was remembering things and I was piecing things together. And this is a really simple movie, but for whatever reason, because it looks so bad, I just couldn't get into it. So the movie basically, Dead and Buried, you know, it takes place in this place called Potter's Bluff, and it's got a lot to do almost like with Antonio Bay and the fog. And I fucking love movies like that. I love the ocean. I love coastal settings. I love small town settings. And this has got like a lot of fog and a lot of grain, obviously, right? And a lot of earth tones. And it's got everybody that I love. It's got Stan Winston. It's got the dude that did Poltergeist 3 is the directing it, right? It says people from Alien, but I know that guy didn't get credited. So it's got all these people attached to it. It's got the dude from the Wonder Years as the sheriff, so you know it's going to be good. And I just started to have more fun with it, and I started to kind of pay attention to the mood of the film, and I wasn't so much focusing on things that were outside of my control, like the way that it looked. And once I kind of got past how like I just couldn't make stuff out the first time I watched it, so this time I like bumped up the contrast a little bit, right? And I might have smoked a joint or something. It worked because I lowered my expectations and I changed the way that I watched it a little bit, right? All of a sudden, now I'm paying attention to Potter's Bluff. The story, the film, Stan Winston, Robert Englund, the practical effects, the little bit of gore that is in here that everyone's like, that's why you should love it, is the gore. It wasn't as good as I remember, but it was cool. There is this 80s charm to it, and it's very unassuming, and it just kind of wormholes. It's this really, really slow burn, just this slow simmer of a film, and I started to pick up on the clues, and I started to kind of have a lot more fun unburying things that I'd missed the first time, and then watched it last night. And this time I put it in my brand new 4K player that I think just upscales everything. It's made everything that I watched before look twice as good, and it still wasn't working for me. So I was in my head about this film again, and I was just kind of like starting to turn a corner. When I think about Dead and Buried, I'm like, there's some cool stuff in that movie, man. I really like the story, right? But then I was just really hoping that this upgraded equipment would make the film look better. And so I was like, this just is not a super strong film for me. I can't love this movie. I can like it a lot, but I can't love it. So I watched it 3 times in the last year. And then after the movie ended, I came back out to the living room and I started watching the special features, and I started thinking about this film, and I started kind of rewinding it in my mind, right? Like what had happened. And the 3rd time I watched it, I think something clicked. Something clicked last night before I went to bed. I got back up and I rewound a scene, and I started thinking about this film, and I just decided that I think I'm the problem. I think like I missed the fucking boat, man. I wasn't paying attention to the subtlety of this film because I was caught up on how it's supposed to be this like gory Stan Winston, you know, before there was Pumpkinhead and before all these other things happened in the 80s. It had a steam in my mind, and it just was kind of like this slow burn, it just wasn't living up to it. And so I changed my expectations before I went to bed, and I watched a couple of scenes, like the end, and I just kind of sat there and it stewed, and I cooked on it, and I went to sleep, and I woke up today and I was getting ready for work, doing all those routines, you know, that you have throughout the day, and I couldn't stop thinking about this movie. I was like, I gotta talk. I knew that I had to talk about it. So I've screened this movie like 3 or 4 times in the last year, and it finally clicked. I was at work and I was thinking about David Lynch, and I was looking at like this checkerboard floor, and I was just like kind of like daydreaming and thinking about David Lynch and just having I was just having a surreal moment. And I was like, man, I love David Lynch. I love how his worlds always have like these crazy little like towns and like deep, weird, kitschy Americana stuff that just really appeals to me, and it's just very like kind of poetic and gross at the same time. And then I started thinking like, Dead and Buried is a very like David Lynchian film. It totally, it's Lovecraftian. Like how did I miss that and so then everything that I thought about this film for the last year condensed in my mind, and I put all the clues together, like all the glue that I've been thinking about, him digging up the body in the cemetery, right? Always picking at his hands, the mortician always playing this big, there was all these clues in the film, and it just became like, instead of just like a Twilight Zone episode, it became like I started to see the film through the lens of the sheriff instead of the lens of the people, and trying to like, finally worked. The sheriff is trying to like repress something that he already secretly knows that he's not supposed to, and he can't let it go. And so people are dying and he doesn't want to be a part of it. So maybe he's just elected town sheriff or whatever. It clicked. I was like, oh my God, this is kind of like a Jacob's Ladder, like Stepford Wives, The Wicker Man. Like it's got themes that I'm used to, that I love in other movies, and it finally worked for me. And I was just smiling at work. I was like, that's a good movie. That's really smart. I was like, but I'm really happy about this movie now. I'm happy to say that I'm the problem. This is a good movie. I would say even teetering on great. Amazing cover art. Amazing. That is every 80s kid walking down the aisle, man. Unbelievable poster art. And then this thing comes with a soundtrack, which I think also rips. And for some reason, like when you see Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, and it's Blue Underground, like I was like, it sounds pretty good in Dolby Atmos, right? But it just, I wanted a lot more. I wanted to see the money on screen, and I wanted to hear and feel it. And it's just a very subtle kind of film. And once I got over my own expectations of what I felt like it should be, I loved it. And I think that I went from like thinking it was like a 4 to probably like a solid 7, especially for 4 or 5 scenes in there that are really, really graphic, that actually really, really work. I just had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun going on this journey, trying to figure out what this movie is about. And then like realizing that sometimes I have hangups with audio and video because I'm a tech guy. I've always really liked it. And when those things don't deliver, I get a little bit stressed out. So I'm here to blow the whistle on myself, right? Spill the tea. I'm a fuck up, and Dead and Buried actually is pretty damn good. Saying all that, here's the moral of the story. Here's the warning. When you blind buy stuff, and I love Blue Underground, so I buy pretty much everything they put out. If you don't already love Dead and Buried, this film, you do not need to own this on 4K. There is no reason, okay? This film looks like trash. I have not figured out a way or a setting to make it look... I can make it look tolerable, okay? But this looks like you're watching something from the 60s that wasn't restored correctly for 4K. Maybe I just got a bad one. And so I've actually looked this up on Amazon when I first bought it, and it said, warning, this film is returned a lot. This is one of the #1 returned films when I bought this on Prime. And I didn't, so when I went to check the reviews, everyone was talking about the picture quality. So I thought maybe at first I just got a bunk one, because everybody on YouTube was talking about how much they loved the transfer and how great it looked. And I was like, are you being paid to say that? Because this does not look good. You do not need this on 4K because it doesn't look good. The Dolby Atmos is a nice touch, but it's still kind of flat. Like I don't know. It just doesn't, the production is not great. So you don't need to own this on 4K. If you got that on DVD, that would be just fine because it looks like a DVD. No matter how I've tried it, the Blu-ray, the DVD, the streaming copy, the 4K, I don't love it. Okay? So I love you guys. I do.